Ethan Cole smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that quietly said this conversation would go nowhere. It was a cold Thursday morning in early spring, 2012. Ethan owned Cole Agricultural Equipment, the largest machinery dealership in Riverdin County. He had spent more than 25 years building the business, selling expensive machines and closing large contracts. Over time, Ethan came to believe he could judge a customer within 10 seconds. That belief was about to be proven wrong. Standing across from his desk was Samuel Hart, a 72-year-old farmer wearing mud-stained boots and a sun-faded jacket marked with old oil stains. His hands were rough, his posture calm. Samuel farmed outside town and rarely came in, usually only for parts. Samuel spoke quietly and said he would like to purchase 11 tractors that day. Ethan blinked, then smiled again, assuming it was a joke. He asked if Samuel understood what 11 tractors would cost. Samuel replied that he did. Ethan estimated the total out loud, noting that even used machines would cost well over $500,000. Samuel calmly said he needed specific, proven models. He unfolded a piece of paper from his pocket and placed it on the desk. The list was detailed, with exact years and reliable workhorse models. Ethan stopped smiling and checked his inventory. He had 5 tractors that matched the list. When Ethan told him this, Samuel said he would take the 5 that day and asked if the rest could be sourced within 2 weeks. Ethan told Samuel he didn't think it was realistic. Samuel reached into his jacket and pulled out a simple checkbook. He asked how much the 5 tractors would cost. Ethan checked the prices and said the total was $214,000, expecting Samuel to hesitate. Instead, Samuel wrote the check and placed it on the desk. Ethan stared, then called the bank. The funds were verified. Samuel Hart had more than $2 million available. The room suddenly felt quiet. Samuel smiled calmly and said that Ethan had judged him by his clothes, which he understood because most people did. Ethan asked how Samuel had made that kind of money. Samuel said he would explain why he was buying tractors. Samuel grew up watching his father lose their farm because of debt. Loans piled up and the land was taken. That memory stayed with him. When Samuel later bought his own land, he made one rule for himself: no unnecessary debt. He owned 1 tractor, fully paid for, and maintained it carefully. When the farming crisis came, auctions and foreclosures followed. Banks were desperate to sell equipment. Samuel attended quietly, buying machines not to show off or flip, but to preserve value. He paid cash, stored the equipment, and maintained it patiently. While others chased expansion, Samuel waited. Over time, young farmers began coming to him. They had skill and work ethic, but no access to credit. Samuel didn't lecture them. He offered opportunity. Tractors were sold at cost, sometimes gifted, always with 0 interest and patience. It wasn't charity, it was trust. Those farmers succeeded, and they remembered. At the same time, Samuel was quietly buying land, but only during downturns and only with cash. Years passed, land values rose, and debt never followed him. By the time Samuel walked into Ethan's dealership, he owned over 2,000 acres free and clear. Samuel explained that he wasn't buying tractors for himself. He was buying them for 11 farmers who couldn't get started. Some would pay nothing, some would pay slowly, but all would get a chance. He said he didn't need more land. He needed to pass something forward. The tractors were delivered that week, and Ethan drove one himself. Samuel's farm didn't look wealthy. It looked intentional. The buildings were old but solid, the fields clean, the machines maintained rather than replaced. Over the next months, Ethan watched the deliveries. A mechanic starting over, a teacher leaving her job to farm, and a man whose family had lost everything years earlier. These weren't reckless gifts, they were careful investments in people. Samuel later sold his land, created a foundation, and funded it to help farmers long after he was gone. When Samuel passed away quietly years later, his funeral was filled with farmers and families whose lives he had changed. Ethan stood in the back, listening and learning. A man walked into a dealership asking for 11 tractors. He didn't look rich, and he didn't need to. Real wealth isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It waits, and when it finally moves, it changes lives. Samuel Hart never cared who knew how much money he had. That is why his legacy still works today.